Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the BurgCast, the official podcast of Wartburg Athletics. This is Trent Jackson again, here with you, Wartburg Sports Formation Director. And this will be episode 8. We checked in with Katie Foster, an upcoming senior on the Wartburg volleyball team. She's a 3-time All-Conference libero for the Knights, was last year's American Rivers Conference MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, finishing second in the nation in total digs. Katie talks about her background growing up in nearby Charles City, her Wartburg journey, what she's learned along the way from freshman to senior year. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Happy to be joined now by Katie Foster, senior on the Wartburg volleyball team. Thanks for your time, Katie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So fill us in on what you've been up to this summer.
It's been a very boring summer, to be honest. Being home, once school finished off on the online stuff, I've been nannying and putting in workouts and otherwise just spending time with friends and family since pretty much, 1, there's nothing to do in Charles City, and 2, there was nothing to do for a long time.
Yeah. Well, has some of your usual off-season training or workouts, have you had to adjust some of that stuff, or have you been able to accomplish what you normally done?
Most definitely. So once we figured out that we weren't doing our spring season, weren't doing our regular training, Coach Frizzell actually gave us a good amount of time off and just kind of said, do what you can. I know gyms aren't open. We can't get into actual gyms to play volleyball. And so for a while, it was just kind of whatever we could get in, whatever we could do. And then after that, he'd been sending out workouts to do 3 or 4 times a week and cardio the other days. So we have actual workouts to do now, which is kind of nice. So it's not like go to the basement and figure out whatever you can do down there. But it's been challenging, but it's been definitely a learning process for not just the coaches, but for all the players as well.
Right. Well, I'd imagine it's kind of crazy that you're already heading into your senior year this fall. Obviously, it'll be a little different than normal, and I'm sure you guys have already had to make those adjustments there in the spring, but hopefully, you're able to make the most of it. What are you looking forward to most, just getting back on campus?
Right now, I think we're all just kind of waiting around for the decision to be made about volleyball, because we've seen other conferences, other divisions kind of making those decisions. But I think right now it's just like being back on campus, being back with everybody. And I know if we don't have a traditional season, like all the girls are just so excited to be back on campus because we've been away for 5 months to get back together. And tonight, actually, we're having an open gym kind of thing with a few girls. So it's nice to just not play volleyball with your garage roof and play with other girls and get back with teammates and things like that.
That's exciting. Yeah. And obviously you guys have a lot of returners on the team, so it should be hopefully be able to look forward to a really exciting year. But before we talk more about that, I want to just get into some of your background. You already mentioned, you grew up in Charles City. What are some of your earliest volleyball memories, or just your sport background in general?
Yeah, for sure. So I honestly live by that term. I was born and raised in the sport. I have 2 biological older siblings. And so growing up, my mom was my coach, my dad was my coach and everything. If I wasn't playing a sport, I was going and watching theirs. We did travel club ball all throughout the year. So if I wasn't playing, I was usually at a game watching. Mm-hmm. Charles City is very, very small. And so I feel like the majority of your time, growing up, is doing those little leagues, doing those rec programs, which is where I've met all of my friends as I grew up, things like that. But then as I grew older, we're in Charles City and Waverly are in the same conference. And so it's been interesting to be in the Waverly side of things and talking with 3 of my teammates are from Waverly. So talking with them, just kind of reminiscing on things that we did growing up. But it was a very, if you think of a small town, Charles City would be in between a very small town and a Waverly size. So.
Right. Fun. Well, then you, find some success at the high school volleyball level. And you mentioned Waverly. You're obviously a bit familiar with it, but how did you eventually land at Wartburg, and why did you think it was the best fit for you?
So I have a very interesting recruiting story. Both of my siblings went to the University of Northwestern in Minnesota. They knew from a very early time, like junior, early senior year, where they wanted to go. I committed to a school in Minnesota early on. I was going to go run track and play volleyball there. And probably, I think early May, I decided that's not what I wanted to do. And then I got my original interest in Wartburg was to run track there. So I got a hold of Coach Newsome, and it was like he could fit in one recruiting visit to my school before school was over. And so he came, we talked. I decided I was going to go there. And then I went and did a volleyball camp with my mom that she does every year in early July. And I told her, I was like, I think I want to play volleyball as well. So I emailed Coach Rizal, and within 24 hours, he had sent me like all of the player pack stuff I needed, move-in dates. And so it was about 3 weeks till I had to move in from when I emailed him.
Funny. And now you're 4 years later.
And
That's
now
cool.
I'm here still. Yep.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned, I didn't know that your sisters did they play volleyball at Northwestern?
My older sister played volleyball and basketball there for the first year, and then just volleyball. And my brother actually played football at the University of Northwestern. So I kind of, because she was a senior when I was a freshman, so kind of throughout my entire high school career, I would go and watch her play volleyball and other sports and him play football up there.
Yeah, because that almost kind of leads into my next question. And then, so you land on campus and you were able to make an immediate impact on the team. You know, the Iowa Conference Freshman of the Year, and the team made it to second round of the NCAA tournament, which was in St. Paul on that campus. Just tell me about what that first year was like for you.
Honestly, I feel like as a freshman, you kind of come in and take it all in throughout the year. Like, I was a hitter in high school, and so coming in, I remembered him just being like, you're pretty short to be a hitter at the college level, and I knew that coming in. It was definitely a transition, but one person who helped me out so much was Bree Bader, and she was a senior that year. And I remember we have a thing called early reps, so your setters and your passers will come in about 45 minutes before everyone else just to get some early reps. And I remember Bree every single day would want to go in 40 minutes before our early reps to get early reps. And so as a freshman, I kind of just thought, like, that's all it is. You just play volleyball, you go to school, you go to sleep, wake up, do the same thing the next day. It was very fun because that group of seniors, they were very mature, and they really knew, like, okay, we have a very experienced roster, but then we also have some key players that are very young. And I felt like they did a really, really good job of taking us under their wing. Kylie was the other freshman that played. And so I felt like they did a really good job of trying to welcome us there and help us adjust, one with the level of play, but also just coming into a college and doing the academic side of that as well.
Yeah, and then you fast forward, you've been part of the 3 in a row regular season title teams, making that 5 in a row for Wartburg this past season. Looking back now, or just tell me about what you've learned since that first year, and just tell me about the ride from there till now. For sure. So, like I said, I feel like freshman year, you kind of take it all in. You don't really know like the behind the scenes, what's really happening, like how important certain games are or weekend tournaments are. But I would say from that freshman year where I felt like, obviously I was the youngest one Kylie and I were the youngest 2 on that starting roster. But then even going in the sophomore year, we were really young. We had 2 seniors, and the rest of us were majority sophomores, some freshmen, and maybe a junior or 2 in there. And then this past year really being that core group of juniors that played, a few sophomores, a few freshmen. But I just think going through those seasons, you kind of see the progression of like how important it is to have an experienced roster and to have those younger players step in and to really welcome them into the program. So I feel like this coming year, this 2020 season, we were all like, we're not losing a single starter. This is going to be so awesome. Like, bunch of the other conference schools, they're losing half their starting roster. We're not in that boat. It's going to be so fun with spring season, and then it was canceled, and now we're not sure what it's going to be in the fall. So it's been a very awesome experience at Wartburg.
The coaches, Coach Walker, Coach Rizal, are awesome. They balance well, I think, in their roles with the team and how they communicate with each other and with us. And then I also think just like the climate at the culture at Wartburg is one where it's like you come in and you won the conference championship the season before as our freshman, and then we won it again that year and sophomore and junior. And so I think as people, hear Wartburg and they come and visit, it's one where it's a championship mindset. You're going for a 5-peat or a 6-peat, and that's normal at Wartburg football, Wartburg wrestling, everything like that.
Well, and you alluded to the regular season titles, and I touched on that too, but the last 2 years gotten bounced out by UD. What's it going to take to, well, hopefully you have the chance to kind of make it back to the national stage?
Yeah, so I would say that those 2 years, it was kind of not necessarily people not understanding how important those games were, but I think it was you have a lot of young players and a lot of moving pieces in those last 2 years where it's, some people that haven't played at that level yet or are just now starting to play at that level as freshmen or sophomores kind of get that nervous, I don't want to make mistakes. I don't want to let the team down kind of thing. And so I think this year it really is having that experience under your belt, understanding the stakes of the game, understanding how you need to execute every single point, but also understanding, you make a mistake, you shake it off, you get the next ball, because obviously if you keep, dwelling on that one mistake, which I feel like this last year wasn't necessarily the case. I just think, they outplayed us. But I think going into this year, a lot of girls have understood like the importance of the off season, the importance of getting in and training, not waiting the entire summer or the 5 months this time to touch a volleyball before you come in. And I think this time we don't have to go through that transition period of getting to know one another, getting to play with other people, because we have our entire roster returning basically. So I think that would be really important, which is why we were really excited for the spring season, because like the people that were there is who we would be playing with this coming fall. But, it's been interesting. We actually have had some accountability groups that we've started because it is such a long time off where we want to really make the first years feel welcome, since we couldn't have our open gyms and we're not quite sure what our volleyball camp's going to hold yet. We're supposed to know if we're going to have those still or not, which is a huge piece because we always do, a big sleepover, a big go out to eat, kind of introduce everyone. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
It's going to be different. So let's discuss your game a bit. That's funny that you mentioned you were a hitter coming in to college, and now you're transitioned to, one of the top liberos in the country. You were second in the nation in total digs last year. I'm curious how you kind of developed that talent, or who can you kind of credit that to?
For sure. One, my parents, genetics, 100%. My dad's idea of, hanging out on a weeknight was going to the gym in elementary school. So, definitely their drive and passion, because they were both athletes growing up, and like instilling that, if you're going to do something, you're going to be good at it, and putting that time and effort in. So definitely them, just with, I think, the drive to want to be good, but also, my high school years, played with my sister, played with some really, really good athletes. And so a lot of the coaches I had wanted to develop volleyball players, not positions. And so there would be days that all I would do is pass instead of hit, even though I was a outside hitter, all I would do is pass that day. And then coming into Wartburg volleyball, like I said, Bree Bader was absolutely amazing. She made me feel so welcome. She helped me, because every time I feel like you play with a different team, especially like club teams, college teams, you do a different defense every time, and you have different hitters. Like Erin Jones, never have passed against someone who can hit a ball so hard in my life, or is as scary as her. And so Coach Rizal was really adamant about, like, when we play 6-on-6, I go to the other side and I pass against Erin Jones, because if I can pass against her, I can pass against anybody, really. And so I think the combination of my teammates, my parents, my coaches, just really pushing me to even though, I was a decent passer coming in, to really elevate that game. And I feel like Coach Frizzell and Coach Walker have done a really good job of understanding my specific weaknesses and, talents, and like playing around with that defense to really use my abilities to the best that I could.
Cool. Yeah. Well, obviously, like digging out a big attack, I think takes like a lot of hand-eye coordination and athleticism, but also I'd assume it probably takes just a lot of grit, just being willing to, go all out after a ball. Just tell me about that mindset defensively.
For sure. I think after getting hit so many times, not necessarily digging it my sophomore year, Kylie actually gave me a concussion because she hit the ball so hard and I didn't dig it. But I think one is just a repetition of, Coach Frizzell can get out of box and crank a few balls at you. And so I think the mentality of, my job as a libero specifically is to make sure that ball doesn't hit the floor. And I think coming into that, it was really embracing that my job is not to put the ball over the net. My job is not to set the other players up. My job is to make sure that ball doesn't hit the floor. And so, after getting cranked on a couple times and trusting my block is a huge thing for me, because I need to read defense. I need to read where they are, where the hitter's tendencies are, kind of thing. And so trusting my teammates, but also just, if you get hit, you get back up, you get the next one.
Cool. Yeah. Well, you're fun to watch. That's fun to watch for sure.
Thank you.
Well, so you're a public health major at Wartburg. I know you also spent some time like a manager in the wrestling team. Just tell me about some of those experiences that have added to, your Wartburg, that experience as a whole.
For sure. So I've changed my major 3 times. Still going to graduate in 4 years, which is awesome. Wartburg is awesome about that. Coach Walker specifically has sat down, I think, 4 or 5 times with me now and has really planned out like where I want to be, kind of stuff like that. So she's been great. Ryan Callahan, our head athletic trainer, his family is like my second family at Wartburg, which has been so fun. They have me over for meals, which is just nice because even though I'm only 30 minutes away, it's still nice to like go over to their house for a home cooked meal. And so Wartburg wrestling obviously is a huge sport in not just Wartburg, but the entire country. So it was really fun to my freshman year I managed, and then my sophomore year I was actually Ryan Callahan's assistant, like his student athletic trainer. So I learned a lot through him. And then this last year, I just did like office stuff in the athletic training room, but really just being around Wartburg wrestling, Coach Keller, Coach Dolly, like it has been so fun because you just hear like their champion mindset every single day. Like you walk into that wrestling room and those boys are ready to work. And so it's been so fun to go to those tournaments and to see all of that, but to also like hear the behind the scenes of like this wrestler is going in and doing this workout and kind of like at the same time learning what it takes to be, a national champion at their level too has been very, very fun. And then also just like intramural volleyball, CN volleyball in May term was so fun. We were bummed out we weren't going to be able to do that this year, but a lot of just those, you go there for volleyball kind of thing, you go there for your academics, but also just a really fun side of, hanging out with your friends who may not be your teammates, soccer players, basketball players, whatever, but it's been a fun 3 years.
Awesome. Well, I think we can wrap up with my final 3 questions. So, who were some of your favorite sports heroes or role models growing up?
Hands down, Allison Felix. She, Olympic champion, world champion, like she was one because I originally, when I was going through high school, wanted to be a track athlete, wanted to go D1, all that stuff. Blew out my knee my junior year of volleyball, had to have surgery, was out the rest of junior year and then came back senior year. So I think one, she's a Christian athlete, which I've really looked up to, her faith and her journey that way, but also some of the struggles that she's had and overcome. Like I just remember middle school, everything, like I just wanted to be Allison Felix. I wanted to run as fast as her. I wanted to go as far as her. And so she was a person that I would say was probably my biggest athletic role model.
Okay, cool. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Probably there's always a bigger picture. when I blew out my knee, I had mono my senior year of track season, a lot of just things that I was like, oh, okay, are you kidding me? This is happening. But my sister and my mom specifically were like, this isn't the end of the world, especially now, having no idea what our season's going to hold. There's always a bigger picture. Sports are not the end all be all. I know once I graduate, I probably won't play volleyball competitively again. So I think whether you fail a test or whether you lose a friend or you break up or whatever it may be, I think there's always a bigger picture has always been my biggest piece of advice of this isn't going to crush me. This isn't going to end all things, but looking forward to what's next.
I like it. Yeah, that's definitely very relative to our current circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we touched on and all the success that you've been involved with Wartburg volleyball. I'm sure, there's been some great matches that you've been a part of, but what is your favorite Wartburg volleyball memory?
I wrestled with two. One of them would be freshman year, beating St. Thomas in 5 at St. Paul in the national tournament. Mm-hmm. That one was really fun because I think the seniors, they were just so hopeful. And so I think that game itself was a roller coaster of emotions. But then, just beating them in 5 was a really fun experience. Or this last year, beating Loris in 5 at their home court. It was kind of a comeback. We were losing 5th set. Coach Frizzell was out because he was sick. So it was there was a lot of things kind of stacked against us. But I think winning that one was a very fun experience as well.
Cool. Well, Katie, I hope, we can have some of those more big matches up this fall and hope everyone can stay safe so that we're able to watch you and the team again. So thanks again for your time and really hope you enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the BurgCast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do us a favor with a retweet at Wartburg Knights on Twitter or a share on Facebook. Check out the official Wartburg Athletics website at go-knights.net for all the up-to-date news and information, where you'll also find the latest podcast posted.